afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
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 Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Good
afternoon.
Almost set. Okay. Well, we're reaching the top. Good. So, well, it's time. Well, just first things first. Session is being recorded and it will be uploaded in our YouTube channel. So I think that it was already noticed or indicated in the form to join the webinar, also in the advertisement of it, but just a short reminder. If anyone has any problem with this, just remember not to put your name or to open your camera. So you won't be recorded in that way. That's the first thing. Second thing, I should present myself probably. So welcome everyone. My name is Íñigo Cruz. I'm part of the Europeos team, and I'm here in cooperation with Generation 2004 in order to do the second part on the administrators in energy, climate, environment competition, where we will organize, or we will see this application workshop. Today, we have the advantage of already an initial assessment of how is the notice of competition, the different elements, some notions, some common background. Hopefully, all of you got time to see that initial webinar. If not, don't worry, it's available in our YouTube channel, so you can check there. And today we are going to, the plan is to go deeper on the application. In fact, today the plan is to go step by step in the application, to help you to focus, to orientate yourselves within the different parameters and items in the application of this competition. So that's our main goal. For that, one short rule. That rule is that, please, as we are many, we are the top of people can be accepted in the session, 100 people. That means a lot. So instead of opening micros, I will suggest that you use the chat for the questions. And second thing for the questions, please, we will go through all the steps of the application: languages, education, work experience, talent screener. So please don't try to ask beforehand. I mean, don't go for questions about the talent when we are still seeing the part of the education, of the professional background. Hopefully, I will manage to cover today in the session most of your questions, more of the elements that are pumping in your head. Okay, how should I address this? How I should do that? Probably most of it will be covered in the PowerPoint. So write it down, write your questions, and let's see if we manage to cover them. And if not, at the end, we will answer of the questions that we can. So that's the plan for today. So if I'm not mistaken, you should be seeing or watching the PowerPoint that we will use as a reference during the session. Just confirming in the chat that you can see it, that you see our croqueta there with the European flag and the reference to the administrators AD6. Yes, good. That's good. Good thing. And now we move into it. So first goal, first setting the goal of this webinar to make it quite clear. Our goal is not to tell you what to write on the application. I mean, we are not you. We are, you know, your work experience. You've been there, been you, but we haven't. So we cannot tell you you should write this and this and that in that sense, in the same word by word. No, the point is to tell you how to do it in a safe and efficient manner to maximize your opportunities. We will focus a lot on the main mistake that we have seen in many candidates, because we've been helping candidates since 2017, and of 2017, we're almost 5 years old already, helping them in the applications to the talent screener and in general to the competitions. And we have seen that there are many mistakes. Oh, there are a few mistakes that tend to be quite repetitive, that appear in many of the candidates' applications, and it's a pity because they reduce their chances to get through, to get into the assessment, or to get through the eligibility check. And now we will try to help you on all that with precise and concrete examples and ideas on how to cover that part, and also some other ideas on how to address your application. Okay, as there are three profiles, different profiles, we will try to be more general. We cannot go in some detail on each profile because that will take days, not 1 hour and a half as we are foreseeing for today. Okay, we got some question on who is me. I already said, in recruit, part of yasemoseuropeos team, and I've been training in the EPSO competition for the last 5 years, training people on all this, also helping them to for the applications. With me, the whole yasemoseuropeos team, and we've been collaborating with Generation 2004. Probably our best presentation card will be our results. Nowadays, well, a few weeks ago, EPSO published an article saying that around 1,100 candidates are in the reserve list from the different competitions. So we can tell you that 1 out of 10 of these candidates are one of our candidates. Then we help them to train on the assessment and in their competitions, and that means that in average we have between 80 and 100% success rate for the assessment and the latest phases of the EPSO competition. So that's our experience and where we are based to. And in our assessment and help to review applications as well, our rate is almost 100%, provided that you fulfill the criteria. That's the main thing. Okay. Okay, so I don't know, the sound is good for all of you. Hope so. So apparently yes. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, one more. Let me see. Okay, apparently everything goes fine. Yes. Okay. So sound is good. Let's continue with that. Okay. So as I told you, today our goal is to help you and to tell you how to do a safe, how to make your application, how to apply to this competition, AD6 in the field of energy, climate, or environment in a safe and efficient manner to maximize your opportunities. If you don't have the minimum 3 years of working experience required, we can help with that, but we can help you to get the most of your 3 years of working experience if you already got it. Just to say in a few words, how we are going to do it, how we're planning to do it. Simple. This is the plan for today. As I told you, we are following the application. So initial data, language and motivation questions. We will see some ideas and some elements. This, by the way, it's based on your questions, based on the feedback that we got from several of you, the emails that we got with some questions. So we try to cover all these elements. The education needed for point two means for work experience, for the work experience, for the, it should be point 3. Because the work experience is the first eligibility barrier or eligibility check. And the talent screener is the second eligibility barrier because we need to have a high score in the talent screener in order to get into the assessment center. Please remember that some details I will omit them because we already covered them in the first webinar that is available in the YouTube channel. So please go to that one to complete what we are saying today. There are 2 parts of the same thing. They are complementary. There will be a few overlaps, but we have a reduced amount of time, so we cannot repeat everything in the same session. Unfortunately, I would like to, but we don't have the whole day. Okay, so I will address the questions that I've seen on the chat later, please, because otherwise it will be quite difficult. Remember, hopefully I will cover most of your questions through the presentation. So as I say, initial data. Remember, This is important. You take your application seriously and you are as good at your explanation. So please forget the idea that, okay, I only have 4 years of working experience. Probably I will be not eligible. I mean, if you got 4 years and your academic background is in line with what is asked, you have you fulfill the criteria for eligibility. And maybe with these 4 years are good enough to get enough score or marks in the talent screener to get into the assessment. So always try to do your best with your application and always try to have good explanation of it there, because also we have seen just the contrary. We have seen candidates who have a lot of experience, 20 years of experience, but they made horrible explanations in their application, really horrible. They omit a lot of information. They were not clear at all. There were so many issues that they got disqualified. They didn't got enough marks and they complain about it. But I mean, if you don't explain, they don't know. The assessors can't know what you got, what you can offer to the institutions. So just to make that one clear. First of all, a stupid idea, probably, yes, because all of you know, but I mean, read the instructions. I mean, as simple as that. This is an example. You see that how they define everything. This is a caption from the talent screener. Yes, I mean, read all the different elements in your application. They are quite self-explanatory, but they are not always. Well, but candidates, we get nervous. We are in a rush. We lack time. I don't know what's your reason, but many of the times you don't read it. That's the problem. So you need to read it. That's the first thing. So next, languages. Let's go for the languages, because I mean, you see on the screen. This we just took it for the field of climate. Could be energy, could be environment. It's the same. It's the same form for that part. I mean, and we mark the part of the languages because we got a lot of questions about this. Well, you see that you have 4 options for the language for your application form, for your reasoning test, for the assessment center, and for the talent screener. This is also explained in the notice of competition, but again, it's in your form, in both of them. So should be clear right from the beginning. Yes, here we have some. It's important to make it clear. It could be a reason to get disqualified if we don't select the language correctly. But also, small element, there are some warnings from the from EPSO and from the form that that prevent you to make a big mistake on this part. It's been automatized in the last years, because years ago it was not. I mean, you could make the mistake. Now you get a lot of warnings regarding the language like this. I mean, when you try to go to the application form and to fill in some parts, they will tell you, wait a minute, you need to define the languages. You need to declare language 1, language 2, language 3, the language, and the language skills in your profile. This is compulsory. We put there Italian as the language to fill in the application. So it means that I would need to fill in my application in Italian, not in other languages, except the talent screener. That the talent screen will be in English. As simple as that. So you see here, you find the language, and you get a reminder that you need to fill in everything in Italian, because I choose this one Italian. But if I go back to the initial part of the form and I put instead of Italian, Hungarian, Bulgarian, Greek, Spanish, I will get a reminder saying me that. So up to you, but be consistent. Be careful, because sometimes we tend to copy paste from other applications, from other CVs, because I already got this explained on my CV, so I just copy paste the information. Fine, provided it fulfills the language. But if not, that's a problem, because it's automatically detected and you can be rejected. Your application could be rejected if it's not in the language that it is said to be. I mean, a small words, a small expression that are usually in English and not in the origin in the language set shouldn't be a problem. That's not an issue. But I mean, the problem is if you do a full explanation of your work experience in a different language than the one that you have set for your application. Remember that the application doesn't include the talent screener in the language part. The talent screener can only be one language, and that's it, English. And that's set in the notice of competition. Here you got the different menus. So you see that the language for your application form, you can choose between the 24 official languages. But for the reasoning test, you can only choose between the 23 official languages except English, because English is the language of the assessment and the talent screener. But for the CBT, what we call it, or the reasoning test, can be only 23 languages, not English. That's the big difference. So be careful with advice. The point. Here another example how the menus. In fact, it's quite silly if you think about it, because I mean it's English or English, but still you need to select English. That's how the form works. I mean, this is EPSO requirement, maybe just to warn us about, okay, guys, you are using English in the talent, you are using English in the talent, in the assessment center. Be sure that you know, be sure that you remember that you got this clear. So it's the way they got it. The same idea as with the save of this every 60 minutes, that you need to save your application just to be sure what is the information that you're saving. Because if they introduce an automatic saving, maybe we don't realize, maybe we just were drafting some text and we just leave it there. It automatically got saved, but it's not a good one. It's not the final one, but it didn't notice. So by not automatizing the saving and forcing us to save the information, it's a way of putting the responsibility on our shoulders of, okay, what you're delivering in your application is the right, the final version, is the information that you want to share with us. That's it, it's how EPSO sees. Okay, this is important to remember. Regarding the question I just saw on the chat, yes, we are going to see a few examples, because but before that, another element, minimum, what we need to define in your application, when you define your language skills. You saw the reminder before, and we got something like this. Remember that for English, we need to mark B2 or above. You can write B2, C1, C2 as your level in English. That's fine. In the 4 competencies that appears on the screen: ability to listen, read, speak, and write. If you, by mistake or by whatever, you say that you got, for listening, I got a capacity of B1, you will get a warning. But also, if you persist and the system finally accepts that you leave English as B1, you can you will be discarded or eliminated from the competition, because they demand at least minimum B2. For the other language, any of the 23 official languages, 1 out of 23, it's enough. Must be C1, C1 or above. That's the language that you will use for the CBT test. Okay, if you put, my case, I will put Spanish, because I'm Spanish. I will say it. So I need to put Spanish level minimum C1 in the 4 categories. If I put lower than C1, I can be eliminated from the competition because I'm not fulfilling the criteria, the linguistic criteria. Careful with these elements. Yes, as a warning, just to be sure what you're doing. But let's go for some example. Let's play a little bit. You see here 4 candidates, candidate A, B, C, and D. And they have defined the following languages in their application. Okay, candidate A put everything in English. Candidate B, English, but for the reason it is Spanish, and for the assessment, Italian, English. But the candidate C, Bulgarian, for the application form, for the reason in German, for the assessment French, and Italian, English. And the candidate D got French for the application, French for the CBT, and then for the assessment, Italian, English. What do you think? Which one will be the candidate who will get through, whose application will be accepted, and which candidate will get a warning saying, okay, no way, you cannot present your application, or you will be eliminated from the competition if you persist with this selection of languages? What do you think? Just try on the chat. Yes, some educated cases. We see that someone say A and C are not okay. Others say French will be accepted. BOD, okay. Candidate will be candidate B will be accepted. Yeah, okay. I think that we are all more or less in the same line because exactly, yes, candidate B and D, yes, they fulfill the criteria. They must be accepted based on the languages only. We are referring now only to the languages, so they're fine. But for candidate A and C, no way, they cannot be, because in the case of candidate A took English as reasoning test, not possible, cannot be. And candidate C just pretend to do the assessment center in French. It's not possible, must be in English. Also, you got several paragraphs in the notice of competition justifying why the assessment is in English and not in French or in any other of the official languages of the European Union or working languages, French or German. So this is clear. Hope we are not aligned in the language part, and we can move on to the other parts, to the motivation and the other different parts. Okay, special needs. Remember, if you got by any circumstance special needs to do the CVT or to do the assessment, I don't know, that's personal, up to you. Remember to mark yes in the application, and you will get extra information. It will be a submenu that will be open and will tell you how to contact EPSO and to inform about your special needs. So don't forget to indicate here, because if you don't put it in your application and then you request some special help and assistance, it gets more difficult. Okay, so we need to inform EPSO about this right from the beginning, so they are aware, and you can ask for your rights in the sense of having equal opportunities to any other candidate if you're in a situation of special needs. Another element on the initial data. Several times we got this question. Should I answer these questions? Should I should I be realistic? Should I say the truth on this question regarding if I'm willing to work outside Brussels, if I would like to relocate to Strasbourg or to Luxembourg? Can I say no to that part? I know that as always Luxembourg is tricky because it's more expensive, but the salaries are at the same level of Brussels. So not the easiest place for all the colleagues in the institutions. So no worry. I mean, this part is not taken into consideration within your application. It's only for statistical purposes, for EPSO information that will help them to have an idea. Okay, guys, this is EPSO talking. Okay, guys, we got the candidates who 99% of them saying that are not willing to go to Luxembourg, or just the contrary. The 100% of them, they are willing to go to Luxembourg. So maybe we should react positively, negatively to promote Luxembourg, or Luxembourg is fine, we don't need to touch anything. So that's the information that they got. They do some statistics in order to know their candidates overall in an anonymized manner. They are not looking, oh, you see this candidate Inigo reply that is willing to go to Luxembourg, good, but it's not willing to go to Strasbourg. Very bad. No, not at all. No, forget it. It's just, okay, one candidate say Luxembourg, yes, Strasbourg, yes. Other candidates say Luxembourg, no, Strasbourg, no. The next candidate, yes and no. The next candidate, no and yes. And they do the statistics. So don't worry about this part. Just reply as you think is your best understanding or willingness. Okay. Now we are moving into the relevant studies. The tricky part, one very tricky, because here it's quite comprehensive. The elements in the relevant studies. We just took it from the notice of competition. I mean, whenever it's possible, we prefer to do a caption on the notice and bring all this information. You see that there are even sectors that are not the first one that come to our mind when we are thinking about energy, climate, and environment. We see that they mark low in energy. It makes sense later on when you think about it, but initially, it's not the first title or education that comes to your mind, probably. Social science or humanities. What do they mean? Well, we got it in climate answer, because they say social science, anthropology, political science, sociology, social psychology. So that's fine. I mean, we got that possibility also for climate. It's quite broad. and environment. We also have the list. Why do they use a different format? That's up to those who drafted the notice, probably because the requirements came from different sources, from different DGs, and then they define it in the way they did. But you see they are pretty similar. They are quite overlapping, especially energy and climate, but environment as well. I mean, in the case of environment, they are only living outside the part of the social science, but still there are some chances. And also, it will mark that, or if our studies are within the limits or the framework of these considered relevant studies, we just need 3 years of relevant professional experience. The problem is that if our studies are not within this area or with this remit, we cannot apply it. Somehow there's this limitation. Instead, for the case of climate, they have introduced that possibility. So what we got is like this. For energy, climate, and environment, if for studies 4 years degree or 3 years degree in a relevant area, then it's associated to the relevant experience that we need to prove, 3 or 4 years. In the case of climate, they got another possibility. If it's in another area, non-related or not relevant, it could be 5 and 6 years. Still, there's that chance. So that's a good thing. I mean, it open more possibilities. But still, we see that these studies that we saw, Quart wrote, there are more chances to fit in, especially if we've been working in the sector, because at the end, it's a question of explaining what we got, explaining our studies. That's the... Okay. So first, when you fill in the education, check for inconsistencies. That's the first thing. I mean, because depends on the language you define your form. You will get the menu of the options with the different studies, no? Right? As we selected Italian first, we got the gymnasium and then the different diploma. But be careful, because I mean, the type of education is not linked with the menu that you select below. So you can make the mistake selecting the type of education, and it's not in line with the information that you put below. So that's the first thing that you need to pay attention to that part. The second part, list the relevant subjects. Now we are addressing this the point of how to fit if our education is not 100% clear, because sometimes our degrees got a special name, a special orientation, and we are not very sure how to sell it in order to prove that it's relevant. So the principal subjects or occupational skills cover means that is the main area where we need to explain how it's interlinked. I mean, when we draft the list, or we write down the list of subjects that we have follow that are relevant for these elements. We see now one example on that part. This is a small map on how to do it, because are your studies relevant? Yes, my degree is clearly listed. Yes, and explain the relevant parts. But what happened? My degree is not listed, as I say. Are there any similar degrees listed or associated by name? Because I mean, you study in a different country, and it got the outside of the European Union, but it was recognized by the European country, and then automatically it's useful for this competition. Then yes, it's possible, it's relevant, but you need to explain, you need to indicate in the spaces allocated for that. No, but they did plenty of relevant courses. So again, explain it. I insist on that part, because it's very typical to find that the candidates, they just put the title of their studies, and it's perfectly clear for them, but not for the person who is reading it, because it's not always that you got a degree on climate engineering or energy science, if possible, or an environmental science. No, my degree is in a special regulation on environmental issues. I don't know. Maybe that one is clear. Maybe it's not. Be sure that even for someone who hasn't studied what you did, for someone who doesn't know you, understand that your studies are in line with those that we saw on the list. And if my degree is not listed, and there is not possibilities to match somehow with what we have said, then the only option would be climate. Examples of this, I mean, think about these candidates. They got a degree on chemical engineering, philosophy, physics, law. Below they put some of the main subjects, the main courses that they can follow during their degrees. What do you think? Are they relevant? Are they related to the profile? Generally speaking, not only to one of the profiles, but in general. Or do you think that, okay, guys, I still have problems to see if you fit here? What do you think? Okay, so you think all the candidates will fit on the competition? Okay, C and D are okay. Some others. Let's see. Let's see. What would be the explanation? Okay, first of all, we invented the subjects, so they are totally made up, no problem. But the second is that for the case of candidate A, he got chemical engineering, that is one of the degrees that is a subject, but the selection of subject that put in jeopardy, cast some doubts on his or her application. That shouldn't be. Explain only the subjects that are related, not the ones that are not related at all. That's the first thing. For the other one, philosophy. Well, philosophy is really a subject that could be initially related. Maybe not at first, but if we will have followed relevant training, relevant courses in our studies that help us for this profile, why not? I mean, that could be accepted. So we have that margin of maneuver. Physics, law, we saw that the subjects are more or less in line with the competition. Okay. I saw a question about if the previous education to the university degree, if we need to put it in your application. Not in this case, as they require the degree, so the minimum, the 4 or 3 year degree, as the minimum element. You can omit the previous education. You just go for the degree and later education as well, masters, PhD, whatever you have done. You need to put it in the CV part, but as well also in some of the questions of the talent will cover that part. So, and now we are moving to the part of the motivation. And for law, I mean, if you, I saw the question about the law profile. If you got any subject or train or course that is more or less in line with this competition, why not to list it? Otherwise, you can cover the main ones. Law is clearly specified, so shouldn't be a big issue. Unless you say that you've been specializing in competition law for your whole life, but then how you can explain that you got the professional working experience, relevant experience on that part? That would be logical. Okay. Now we are moving to the motivation part. Yeah, the motivation part is an interesting one because candidates always wonder, it's that helpful? Do I need it really? Do I get any points? Anything from it? Yes and no. You don't get points. You are not a score on this part, on the motivation questions. But it's very helpful for the assessors to understand you, to know you better, because with the information they gather here, they can go through your CV part and understand you a bit better. It's a kind of context, right? So it's always helpful to invest some time in defining it correctly and spending time to do it properly. The first thing, I mean, it's obvious, maybe, but what we have seen is many candidates, they forget about it. Answer the question. If they're asking about your education experience, how it's relevant to the profile, explain that part. Tell us about that one. Or why are you interested in apply? Because sometimes, no, many times we see that the question and the answer are not the same, are not in line. I mean, you got this question, but your answer is not for that question. So that's very important. Also, no need to use all the characters. Some people think that you will be better regarded or you will better seen if you really fill in all the space. No, I mean, answer the question with the relevant information. If it takes you half of this available space, that's fine. If you take the full space, that's fine as well, provided you answer the question. And another important thing, use facts. They already know that you think that you have the right profile. Man, otherwise, what the hell are you doing here? So please use facts. Try not to stick to opinions, but to hard elements. And for that, we got this example as well. We got the question, how is your education and experience relevant to this particular profile? And we got see 4 different answers. I see this competition as a great opportunity for my career. Final point, that's it. And nothing else. My studies in the domain of, you decide what, together with 6 years of experience in the UN Climate Change Task Force can be a valuable asset. I think I have an excellent profile and experience for this position. Or my degree in engineering X and later PhD in new energies makes me the candidate you are looking for. What do you think about these sentences? Do you find them right? Are they moving in the right direction? Or they need some fine-tuning finally on that part? Let's see in the chat. Okay. In the meantime that you make your comments, I answer the question to Ursula regarding the motivation and skills section. When they will be assessed, it will be on the eligibility checks, because the CV part or eligibility check is the first part, and it's the whole that is read by the assessors. And the talent screener is a completely independent part. It's like 2 different silos. Okay, remember that the talent is assessed in a different time, and the eligibility with the working experience, the motivation, and all these elements is in the other. Okay, so you have the starting points. Good. I see that we're more or less aligned. So let's see. So the parts in red is the one that you should get rid of, because the first part, the first sentence, I see the competition is a great opportunity. Fine, yes, we know it. Tell me more. Tell me something different. My studies in the domain. Okay, now you're talking. Now you're answering the question. You're telling me things that I'm interested in. That you have an excellent profile and experience for the position. Well, as anyone else. Give me evidence. Prove it. On the last one, it's a mix. I mean, the first part, we are fine with it, but the candidate that you're looking for, you don't tell the assessors what they are looking for. You just show them what you can bring, and they will take the final decision if you are the profile. But in your opinion, you are in line with the requirements of the profile. Okay, so it's always important to have that in mind. That's some things that are, of course, understood, and things that you cannot tell the assessors. Right? You cannot tell them what to decide, but provide the information so they can decide in your favor. That's the thing. So, but now we are moving into the professional experience. The tricky part. This is a caption on how the professional experience is set in your application. Okay. See it clearly, not a big deal. You know the timing on top, the different elements of information below, and the final part. We'll see all these elements. So, but before that, let's go back to the notice of competition, because we need relevant experience. It doesn't matter if I got 20 years of working experience, but I've been working as an interpreter for ancient Greek, or translator for ancient Greek. Sorry, translator for ancient Greek. Okay, but ancient Greek, it's very respectful, but it's not really at all with energy, climate, and environment. So what the hell are you doing here? So now in the notice they define what they will consider as relevant experience, in how it can be considered relevant. So through the nature of the issues in field 1, indicated in Annex 1, you see, always go back to Annex 1. And in the domains of areas marked there. So that said, elements that we need to bear in mind. This is a very quantitative approach. We need to get between 3 and 6 years of working experience, depending on our studies. We saw it before. And also we need to be ready to provide justification or evidence of that experience. I mean, I can say that I've been working in the United Nations Climate Change Task Force, but if I don't have a paper saying that, it means nothing. I will get disqualified right at the end when they check my documents. Remember that is minimum one activity of the Annex 1. We need to have it in order to be considered relevant, right? But the more you cover, the longer is the relevant experience taken into consideration. How is that? This is important that you bear in mind, because when they read your description of your activities, of your duties that you have performed in your work experience, they will say, okay, the candidate got 2 duties or 2 activities, or 4 or 6 or 8. This is a criteria that is set by EPSO internally by the board. It's not a standard. It's not in every competition exactly the same. Depends. So let's say that in this competition, it's a supposition. Again, it's a supposition. It's not formal information. The 2 activities is considered like equivalent to half of the time. So if I work as a policy officer, and I have performed only 2 activities set in Annex 1 for 4 years, they say, the candidate could have done more. So I only counting half of the time. I'm counting 50%. So at the end, they will add in the formula only 2 years of relevant experience. So you still need 1 year more to get into the minimum threshold. Or I explained my work experience and I saw that I got 4 activities during these 4 years, or I developed or performed 4 activities in these 4 years. I say, okay, 4 activities, it's 100% for us. So you got 4 years of relevant experience. Physically, you've been working 4 years in both cases, but the level of activities, the experience accumulated and the different areas covered is different. So the final relevant experience accounted is different. That is important because sometimes the candidates, they say, no, but I got 6 years. Yes, but in these 6 years, you only did one thing. And they counted as 25%, 1/4. So it was not enough. So and that's why we always insist, when you describe what you have done in your work experience, these different duties that you have to perform, so it's important that you disclose them and you explain correctly. You don't omit information. You don't give it for granted. No, if I put this, they will understand. Are you sure? Maybe not. Explain it always. If it's possible, explain the things. And important, board decide equivalent of activities to percentage of experience added. It's up to them. And it's a criteria that is not published. So, but what else we can do about the work experience? So another element that you should be aware, the dates are fixed, so you cannot put up to date, because that would mean that your work experience is counting more and more while the process is going through, while the while the competition is going through. That will be unfair and tricky, because some competitions can take years. Now the commitment by EPSO is to do it shorter, but that's why they force you to put one date, even for the most recent experience, even the one that you're working now. So that's why if we got relevant experience, we'll always wait for not the last day, but the day before, to submit, so we can put until that date in our application as working experience. Always, well, a few days more. Especially for those of you who got some work experience outside of the commission, please explain it. Because what is obvious for you from your sector or your work experience, maybe for those working in the institutions, it's not. For those in the already inside the institutions, in the commission especially, please don't abuse on jargon, don't abuse on acronyms, because maybe are not exactly the same thing in all the 3 DGs, energy, climate, environment. They crisscross the assessors, so are not always the same people. So make it readable, understandable for anyone. That's important. And also it's important here is, you prove that you got 20 years of relevant experience. Excellent, super. You pass the eligibility check. Oh, look, I got only 3 years, 1 day of relevant experience, but very relevant because I did a lot of things during the 3 years. And you got a degree. That's enough. You pass equally. This is an eligibility check. It's only saying that, are you eligible? Yes or no? That's the question. So they don't care if it's for 20 years or for 3 years, provided you are eligible. So no score given, but wait for the next slide because I will explain a little bit more the percentage part that is below this caption. And important, please, don't cross-reference with your talent screeners. So be sure that all the information is included here. Don't omit information. Don't think, oh no, they will know from somewhere else. No. All the information should be contained here. From one work experience that you're covering in this reference, be sure that all your information is there. And remember also another question that we get quite often, that occupation means to the position title, and the nature of the duties are the elements, the tasks that reflected in Annex 1, the one that you have done. Of course, it's not a question of copy-paste, but get inspiration from the Annex 1 to fill in all the part of your duties. And I was mentioning about the scoring or not the scoring on the part of the job. Well, we got this percentage. This menu is, this one is for energy, but they got the same thing for climate and for environment with their own questions. Okay, we see that we need to put percentage on each one of the activities that we have performed. Why is EPSO doing this? Well, as they say, they will use it to rank you and to list you somehow in order to assess later the talent, but they are not taking them into consideration. Independently on what you position in that ranking, it doesn't matter. Even if you're the first one or the last one, you will be assessed in your talent equally, and then it will be the grade in your talent that will get you through. But it's important to know that these elements are exactly the same as the questions in the talent, and they have some limitations, like this one. For instance, we cannot put that we're working 150% on this task. If you try to add more than 100, you will get this red warning, like one on the left. But if you put it 100%, not necessarily in all the tasks. It's up to you, depends on your work experience and what you can demonstrate. So you put the distribution up to 100, and that's perfectly okay. So I see the question from Hans. So we cannot put 100% on each task, as you say. It's only maximum 100% between all the tasks that appear listed there. What happens if some of the tests are overlapping? How to put the representative not to lose important points? I mean, in this part, it's not a problem. I mean, if there's some overlap, just distribute the percentage. As you may think is the better option, because you are not losing points. It's just a question of validation. I mean, this part is explained in the Annex 4 of the Notice of Competition, and for the moment, it's a trial that is done by EPSO. In the future, not in your competition, probably they will automatize this part, so it will turn faster all the checking of the eligibility criteria. But for the moment, it's human-made, not a big deal for you. But it will help you as well for the assessment part, as we will see. And not exactly for the validation. It will be more relevant the part when you explain your work experience, the activities covered. You need to put it in the duties. Yes, of course, it should be consistent. I mean, make sense. You explain the duties, for instance, that you have developed. I'm reading the first on top. Development and maintenance of modeling tools of relevance for policy development. I put 20%. I will describe in my duties that I've done this as well. But if I don't put any reference to this kind of activity and I still disclose as 20%, what the hell is going on? There is a mismatch between the information I'm putting in the description of my duties and the percentage of my task, right? So remember that it should be consistent, should be aligned somehow, this part. Internship as professional experience, yes, remember that if it's paid, the internship is considered professional experience. But if it's not paid, cannot be considered. It's also in the annex of the competition. But small suggestion, try to split the internship from the professional experience. Because if you're in an apprenticeship mode or path, I mean, your performance, your responsibilities will be different. As if you are, it's not the same if you're a blue book as if you are a policy officer, For instance, right, even if it's in the same unit, you got higher and you got a contract, your level of responsibilities, your level of implication, it will be different. So that's why it's always good to split this kind of work experience, but both are valid, equally valid, because you got paid for both. PhD, yes, is considered professional experience. If I remember correctly, according to the notice, it's 3 years of professional experience, independently of how much time did you spend to do the PhD. So PhD status, yes, I mean, they should be included as professional experience. No, it's in the notice as well. So follow it. So, as I say, maximum distribution 100%. Info in line with the above indications. When I say above, is the previous slide, but also the indication that appears in the notice itself. Annex 4 describes the process that they do with this percentage part. And they are not limited, but help EPSO to assess your experience. Make it that clear. So take it seriously. Masters are not part of the professional experience. They are only academic part. Okay. Yes, and the PhD must be finalized. Yes, you need to have the PhD title or the diploma, or at least the proof that you already got it, because sometimes it takes 1 year to get to the paper itself, but you pay for it, so it's legally valid to consider that you're already a doctor. It needs to be finalized. Otherwise, it will be tricky. And if it's not finalized, it can be used for the academic part. But if it's finalized, it's a professional part. Hope this part is clear now. So that's regarding the professional experience. But remember that the elements of the percentage, as I said before, are linked with the questions of the talent. Instead, a few of them, like in the case of the graduate, the postgraduate diploma, in the field of energy, that it was the only one. But the other 7 that appear on the percentage. So there is an alignment. So it's important that knowing that the CV and the talent are silos, they are not assessed at the same time, but internally, when we are replying all the questions for our CV and for the talent, we check that the information is consistent, that we are covering the same information, that we are repeating the same information in both sides. Because this time is completely aligned. There's been previous competitions where the questions for the work experience, or the part of the work experience, and the talent were not aligned, not like this. But this one, we got that advantage that are completely aligned. Work experience and the talent screener. So, and that's good. I mean, it's very helpful in order to be consistent in our application. What do in cases within the same position we have changed from full-time to 70%? Should we introduce different reference for the experience? Yes. I mean, in that case, if you've been working on different time allocation, full-time, partial time, I will put it on different slots in order to get the full time acknowledged for the experience when you were working full-time and not to be penalized. So it's repetitive, it takes a few more minutes, but it's better to be safe than sorry. This can be seen that it's clearly there's a match. So I won't stop here. That was covering the previous one. And also the Annex 4, again, it's all there. So please read carefully. I know it's the last page of the notice of competition. People tend to forget about reading this part, but it's always useful. It's quite instructive how they're going to do it and how it's not affecting your chances for getting into the assessment. I mean, this first part, once you pass the eligibility check, you're eligible, it's okay. Don't worry if you get on the list on top or on the bottom. It doesn't matter for your assessment of your talent screener. So regarding a PhD studies diploma, but not defended the title, then you are, as far as I know, you are not formally a doctor. You don't get a PhD degree, title, so it's only academic. In that case, it won't be professional experience. The notice is clear. You need to have finalized to get it counted as professional experience. Regarding internal functioner who has changed his role from CAST OFG4 to AST, with the changes. It does have to describe only one or two professional experience. I would go for two in that case, because otherwise it will be tricky to get the evidence. You will get different records, one stating one contract and the other. So I will go for two in that case. I mean, you can introduce more than 20 references for your professional experience. So provided it's not always professional experience of one day, I mean, still it's heavy, I know, but still you got opportunity. Could affect the percentage of this and the experience, not necessarily. That depends on the explanation for the type of contract, for its type of contract. From policy officer to senior policy officer. It's I mean, it's a category, but it's not a formal change. You're still an AD policy officer, not necessarily. I mean, if your task or responsibility change, I would use two different references, but if not, I would keep the same one. I get that with unfinished experience, we cannot put in the application the professional experience, but can you information from? Yes, the unfinished PhD can be included as academic academic information, but not professional. I mean, it won't be taken into consideration. They will just consider zero for that as professional experience. But for academic, yes, you have done the trainings for the PhD, the courses, so that's valid. It's academic elements. Okay, now we're moving to the talent screener. Okay, the second silo. I mean, as important as the talent is the eligibility that we just saw. Don't think that one is more important than the other, because people get discarded, they get eliminated in both phases, in the eligibility and in the talent. So it's always important to consider very seriously the both parts, the two silos. Okay. And yes, the recording will be available in our YouTube channel later on, so don't worry about that part. This is the typical example of a talent, right? You see on the left the question, fine, and two options, no and yes. If you click on no, the question will remain blue and nothing else. If you click yes, the question will get red if you don't fill in the second part. Those are the details. Okay, silly thing, but it's important, it's relevant to consider. And also it leads me to the first element, first advice: better yes than no. I mean, if you have that, okay, do I have any experience on this? Well, is this activity, you know, in this job, but come on, it's not so relevant. So they put it. I mean, if it's somehow linked, if it has something to do with, please do it. Yes, click yes. And then answer question B. Give me the details. Explain it. Explain it. I mean, if we put no, we got the zero. That's for sure. But if we put yes and we explain it honestly, in the sense that, okay, it's what I did, I got, we may get something. It's always good to have something, because at this moment, we don't know how many candidates will have each profile, and in total, the competition. So if it is a few of them, I mean, the more points that we can get, the better. There is a lot as well. I mean, the more points that we need, they are necessary to get into the assessment, because the passing mark from the talent will be higher the more candidates there are. That's a mathematical rule. So, but if you say no to one question, you don't get eliminated. You're not disqualified because of that. But I mean, the opportunities to get score points are lower. That's the thing. So we need to really be honest with ourselves. Think, okay, I have done something similar to this, and check all the different descriptions of the activities and duties. And this is important. As simple as indicates, I mean, question structure. I will answer the question I just saw in the chat, right? Next. So the point is that on the question they give us an instructor, they tell us, okay, please indicate the name of your employer, the type of employer, the duration, the working pattern, the nature of your work. Guys, just give that information. Don't try to be too original. No, I will deliver a poem describing my job experience. Honestly, that will look very nice, but I don't know to what extent will be useful to the assessor to understand your experience and your relevance, or the relevance of your experience to the question. So keep it tight and close to the structure proposed. We'll see now some examples of this, by the way. Try to be consistent, follow the same order. We prefer the chronological order, from more recent to the oldest. But if by any chance, because of the type of question, the content, you think it's more relevant or, to follow other criteria to order your work experience, to answer the talent, try to be consistent. But what you should avoid is that, okay, first question, I will put from more recent to oldest. Second question, I will write from the oldest to the most recent. Why? Third question, no, first I put the one in the middle, then the most recent, then the oldest. And the fourth question, no, first the oldest, then that's a mess. No, be consistent. Try to keep the same criteria that you are filling in all the questions every time. And also, its question must be self-contained. Please don't create cross-reference. Oh, as I explained in the previous question, no. All the information should be inside of the 4,000 characters that you got to answer. Oh, also, that happens a lot a few years ago. The candidates will say, no, just check on my CV to get more details. No, they won't check on your CV. They only check on your answer. So all the information should be there. Please don't use jargon. Oh, non-explain acronyms. You never know who is reading. You don't know. Maybe you are the biggest expert in ENER, so you know the jargon. You know all the keywords that you use in that direction general, or directorate. But the problem is that maybe the person who is reading your application is from climate, from directorate climate, and they use different acronyms. They use different jargon. That's a pity for understanding each other, right? So be sure that at least the first time you explain the acronym, so it's clear for both sides, you and the assessor, what you are meaning with this element. And better if you get rid of jargon. That's another thing. Remember, this part is more a qualitative assessment with some quantitative items. Of course, if you got more experience in performing different activities, your score tend to be higher, but it's not a rule of three in the sense that you absolutely need 10 years of experience to get the highest mark. No, I mean, maybe your work experience, the activity you have performed during 2 years is enough to get the maximum score in the question, while another person who got 10 years of working experience, but with lower activities get lower score. So this is qualitative mostly rather than quantitative. I'm going back to some questions. And experience that is relevant to under 2 questions repeated, yes, but remember the questions are not the same. So the working experience is repeated, but the description, the explanation of the duties carried on should be adjusted to the question. That's important. Maybe between occupation and nature of this, what do you mean in practice? Occupation will be your role. Let's say we will sit now. The nature of the duty, the description of the task. We will see in an applied manner. Publication reporting in the talent screener. Yes, you can report on your talent screener some example of publications because many of you have some academic background, but tend to omit your name because many of the times you put the authors on that. You just put that you got a publication, maybe the title or the place where you publish it. Yes, in principle, the talent shouldn't be identified, personally identified, but it's true that based on the information that we are going to put here, they could cross references and find out who we are, but not because we just put our name. So omit your name. The rest of information is relevant. For instance, a question of working as researcher at the university. Well, that's in principle, most of the universities are public institutions. So probably I would write that it's a public institution, educational sector or research sector, depends on the type of university. But and it's, of course, it's professional experience that can be relevant. But you need to explain what you have done, because you can be working in the university on the areas of climate change. That's we're guessing, and you need to explain that part. But if you don't tell me, I cannot tell as well as an assessor. Remember, the assessors are not there to suppose or to think about. They just assess what they got in front of it, or in front of them. So if they don't read it, they cannot assess it. So it's not as the exact reference to the publication, but your name on the publication. The reference, yes, I mean they could eventually they could find it out even for the title or through the title. So it's just your name on it, because later on they will ask you to justify that. Okay, have you published this document? Yes, look, guys, I got the article and my name is there. That will come later. So, and what if you feel, well, that's a good question. Fill part B with less than 1 year experience, do you think that they will be considered? If it's only one single activity, one single job experience with less than 1 year, probably no, because the question say more than 1 year. But if it's two job experience with that accumulate more than 1 year together, yes, you can get something. So, but the year is the threshold. So let me move on to follow the instructions, as I said before, and the nature of your work. So the name of your employer, the type of your employer. So I mean, there are some employers that are evident. Okay, I'm working in the European Commission. Should they specify that it's a public entity? Oh, probably no. I mean, it's clear for all that the European Commission is the European Commission. No need to explain. But I'm working for Logistics SL. What the hell is that? The company is what is that? Logistic SL. Explain that one. So if it's not clear by the name, specify the type of employer. The duration of your professional experience, start and end dates. They ask for the dates. They don't ask for the length. Because sometimes we candidates tend to put the length of the work experience. No, they ask for the dates. That's the point. So you put that part, and that's enough. And your working time pattern, that's a typical one. When people is not working full time, they work part-time. And you say, okay, part-time, but what part-time? It's 50%, 80%, 70, 60, 45. They don't specify. That's classic. If it's your case, specify, please. It's in your favor. Your position, your title, the nature of your work. What were the goals, objectives, the general task of the position? This is on general speaking. It's true that sometimes it gets merged with the last point, your specific role and responsibilities, and people tend to omit the nature of your work. That's not a big deal. It's possible. If you cannot clearly differentiate this nature, goals, objectives, general tasks, and your specific task, just merge them. That's not a big deal. But it's important that you describe what you have done. Because that's another thing. Many times we see candidates who describe the role, the responsibilities, the task in a manner that you don't know what they have done. Well, I know that in your company they have done. In the company where you were working, or in the unit where you were part of it, they have done all this. But what you, honestly, I have no clue what you have done. Tell me. This is important. That's why we say that follow the instructions. As simple as that. But it requires practice. I mean, it's not a thing that can be filled in once and you can feel satisfied. No, it needs review. It needs to get back into your answers to get it done. Just to, as an example, I cannot say it was the best, but one of the most performant talent screeners I've ever seen was a candidate who just wrote it one day, the talent screener, and then she came back on the talent for 1 week. Every day, she came back to all the answers, read them, redraft them, check them. Say, no, this sentence I don't like. I do it again. For 7 days, he was spending time every day checking all the answers, checking all the content, checking all the description of what she had done. At the end, she got, I don't recall the exact number of what was the limit, because each talent has different thresholds or different maximum marks, but she got 98% of the points available on that talent, 98. So, and I promise you that she was not the person with more experience in that competition. She was not a CV or a person who got 30 years of experience. It was more or less 10 years of relevant professional experience. But still, she did her best in order to get that talent with the maximum results, with the maximum markings, by following the structure, by explaining things clearly, identifying all these different elements that we have seen. Okay, for that question, I'm coming back later. From S. The question is certain experience that may be valid and relevant to different questions. Okay. Yes, answering to Luis, yes, I answered to the question, but I repeat it again. If work experience is relevant for two questions, of course, you repeat the work experience. That's not an issue. I mean, it's what it is, of course. But please adjust the answer. I mean, what you cannot do is to just say that the specific role and responsibilities in question 1 and 2 were exactly the same. If you just copy paste the information and that part on the top part, name of employer, type of working pattern, your position can be copy paste, but the nature of your work could be as well, but the specific role and responsibilities need to be adjusted to its question. So be sure that the answer is aligned with the question. That's important. Yes. Remember that we saw it before, that the talent is aligned also with the percentage, the distribution percentage of your work experience. So if you want, you put 20% and the other 30%, it's one of the questions. The first question, or that is the second question. So you adjust these elements. But please remember that you crisscross this reference. You got the talent and the duties for reference. So you need to find more information. You need to find more vocabulary, activities, tasks that they are looking for. Identify what you have done in the duties. Those are the elements that you need to put in the talent. Okay, let me go to one example that we prepare before continuing with your questions. Okay, we got the question on the left, one of the questions of the talent. And at least 1 year of professional experience in performance, socioeconomic, legal, policy, and scientific analysis, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read everything. And the candidate wrote, okay, I got my first experience lobbying without borders from the 1st January 2008 to 2nd of January of 2009. Part-time analysis, nature, assessment of environmental governance, role, performance, socioeconomic analysis with view to facilitating decision. Liaison with experts, I did an excellent job. Interesting. European Commission, DG Sport, invented totally, don't worry. So from the 2013 to present, 9 years. Wait a minute. Should be more, should be less. Full-time policy officer, assessment and analysis. Okay. My team is in charge of assessing the circular economy for sustainable chemicals, impact assessment on new regulation, including socioeconomic impact. We also organize the legal assessment of sustainable waste directive. Okay, but do you detect something that is wrong here? Do you see something that is odd in all this writing, in all this part description? Let's see. For instance, my team, not me. There are plenty of small things that they have evaluated their own work, not clear what he did. Yes, the excellent job. Exactly. Yes, exactly. You have spotted the different elements. We got it here. Lobbying without borders, type of entity. It's a private company. It's a NGO. It's a university. We don't know. Why older first? I mean, probably it's more relevant the second than the second part. So put it on top. Part-time. What part-time? What's the percentage? Analysis of what? Yes, nature, assessment of environmental governance. Okay, fine, the overall, but role, decision making and policy making on what? What's the policy about? I did an because that sentence, performance socioeconomic analysis with view to facilitating decision making and policy making, that would be an example, a clear example of a candidate who knows perfectly well what he or she did, but forgets to explain to others who doesn't know. So we need to explain. I did an excellent job. Really? If I don't believe you, what happened? Liaison with expert. What kind of expert? There are many types of experts. There are many types of liaisons. So tell me more. And here and below, go to the green part on the bottom. Bullet points for role and responsibilities are welcome. In the sense that, please, I mean, instead of writing a paragraph that it's mixing all the elements and makes it difficult to differentiate, just listed them. Put bullet points. I mean, it makes life easier to everyone. So use bullet points. That was one thing. For the second, under present 9 years, how is it possible? Did you take a leave or mistake in the info? I'm referring because we are almost in 2023. Probably your application, your talent will be written in 2023. So, and it was just the January. I mean, it's 10 years. It's not 10 years. Be careful with that. That's why it's better to put the dates. And if there's some changes in your professional pattern, because you move from full job, full time to partial, indicate, or if space allow it, put it into different references, up to you. You got 4,000 characters. So you decide. Full time, policy officer, nature assessment analysis of what? Again, for you was clear that assessment analysis, but for me, it's not. My team. Nice. You have a team, but what did you do? I'm not assessing your team, I'm assessing you. So impact for what? Or what did you do again? So you see, these are very obvious and simple ideas, but they are covering what we have seen many, many times in the applications. What you need to check once you have filled in the talent to say, okay, did I cover all these elements? It's clear. It's for someone who is not me. Clear everything I put here, because you've been there, you've been your professional experience, hopefully. So that's perfectly clear. But for an assessor who doesn't know you, who doesn't know you are John, Mary, Pepe, or Luisa, so we need to explain it. We need to make it crystal clear from here. And the more clear it is, the better, because it will be reflected in a higher mark at the end. Okay, that must be certain. So, last but not least on this part, if you cannot prove it, don't write it, please. If you've been working in a X company, but it was in black, I mean, that you were illegally working in a company for several months, and you use that experience to put it in the talent, and you have no means to prove it, and it was not legally paid, and all these elements, don't dare to write it on the talent screener, because then they will consider this a fake working experience, and you can be disqualified. So only put information that you can prove. It's true that sometimes it's difficult to prove to all the details in your application, because in the talent you are delivering a lot of small details on what you have done, and sometimes your contract, your job description doesn't go to that level. Fine, provided there is an alignment, provided that it's clearly that it's understandable that in your contract puts, okay, climate change scientists with these 3 main tasks, and these 3 main tasks more or less cover all the different activities that you have indicated in your talent screener. That will be fine. But if you got a contract saying, okay, linguistic assistant, and you use that contract that is saying linguistic assistant as a proof or evidence of your working experience as a climate change scientist, that will be tricky. That will be very difficult to prove and to demonstrate that there is a link between that. So be careful with this element. I mean, we have seen it. We have seen candidates who got disqualified because they couldn't prove some of the elements that they included in their talent. EPSO really check this part. Again, a small reminder, remember to align the information on the talent screener with the percentage. I mean, if you just put the development, monitoring, implementing, and enforcing energy law, the third point, the third row, is more or less the third question in the talent. So if you put there 50%, be sure that in the talent, when you cover this element in the question, well, you describe it quite with a lot of detail, because if it was 50% of your time, you are supposed to have enough elements to describe there. There should be an alignment. It makes no sense that in one of these elements on the right, on the percentage, you put 0, and then in the talent, it appears a lot of details, and the contrary, you leave it blank in the talent, but then in the working experience, you put 100%. So be sure that it's aligned for your own sake, because it means that all the information is consistent, that you are covering all your real experience and you're providing all the information in an understandable manner. That's why we're insisting on the alignment of the different elements. Okay. Last but not least, and then I will go to all your questions. So remember the eligibility checks, to say yes to all, then confirm eligibility and submit the application. But before submitting the application or validating it, please read everything again. Remember that you can have the overview. You see there on the center of the screen, the overview. You can see your whole application. You can print it. You can save it as a PDF. So you got all the information there. You just take it with you, read it on the metro, read it at home, with all the details, reviewing it, because it takes time. A good application, it's a question of writing it down one day or 2 days, but then coming back and reading it and redrafting it with fresh eyes. I mean, this is very important. This is very, very important. So read everything again and again and again. I should have written many agains, but this is important. And then that will be it regarding the application and the main elements. I mean, this is not rocket science. No, it's climate science, energy, and environment. Yes, true. But it's about not making big mistakes. It's about getting sign of your work experience or your professional experience above all, and using the resources available. We have tried to cover these main mistakes. Now, I will go through your questions. Okay, for instance, what if we have much broader duties like writing in your job description? What then? I mean, you describe them because you know them better than anyone. If there's a consistency, that could be a lack of detail not reflected in your job description, but still it's clearly visible that this job description that is like this can be expanded to all this long list of activities. That's fine. The problems I said before is when these are not a match. When clearly your job description saying that you are, I don't know, an expert in energy, but you are claiming that you are an expert in climate change. So what? How is that possible? Tell to me how is that? About voluntary and paid activities, how to prove? There's no way. If it's unpaid, cannot be considered. In the assessment, we can just bring examples of unpaid activities, but for the talent and the CV part, for both parts, we can only bring things that we got paid for. It's the only accepted working experience. Okay, so no way unpaid activities can be considered in your application. About the documents, just job contract, job description, depends on the type of job contract. Some job contracts, they got a full description of the task, excellent. Some others, they just put a name, and that's an issue because sometimes the name is just taken from the regulation, the administrative regulation, and it's not a clear match with the experience or a clear match with the things or the tasks that we have done. That's an issue. Be sure that you get some other document, maybe a signed declaration by your former boss stating your activities, some kind of official document or a signed document that states what you have done or what you have performed, especially for those of you who are coming from the private sector or different areas outside the institutions. From those in the institutions, usually you go the description of your task in the system. So that should be good enough to prove your work experience. What about organization of meetings, events, some took place in the past, or the information about them is not public? How can they prove this kind of experiences? if it's one single event that is not public at all, it's difficult. It's your word against the assessor. I mean, again, they will accept it if it's consistent with the information that you are providing. If you're telling me that you've been working alone in a unit just transcribing numbers, and now say your job position was transcription of numerical input on climate change. And then you say that in that position you have organized the latest COP23 or 24th, that you were the main organizer. How the hell is that possible? I cannot believe it. But if you're telling me that you were organizing, you were part of the unit responsible of the participation of the commission in that event, well, I could believe it more or less that you were an organizer, that you were doing some organization activities. So there should be some consistency, but you need to explain as well. Just general description of activities of the G, but not personal work experience. It is helpful as a reference. Of course, the small details provided by you, but the overall detail can be provided by the documents. Regarding the upload of the documents, that comes before the assessment, so it will take a time. So now, if you think you can get the documents, go for it, put it on your application, and then start to look for the documents while they assess your reliability and your talent, because it will take several months. Your assessment won't come before springtime, that's for sure. So, I mean, you still have a lot of time to get all the documentation, but don't wait until the last day to get it, because in that moment you're in a hurry and things are not good when you do things in hurry. Sorry, I'm going through the previous one. Yes, not so. Then another question was regarding the employer and the position stay the same. In the talent, is the employer and the position stay the same or can be adapted to a specific task, depending on the question? I mean, nature of your work could be probably more or less the same, but then the specific tasks, those definitely should be adapted. Depends on the question, the explanation that you provide. Nature of your work, yes, in principle should be aligned with the same job. So if we already work in the European institutions, you already have all the relevant documentation related to our diplomas, work experience. Do you know by any chance if we have to provide everything again? Yes, you have to provide everything again, because this is an external competition. So all the candidates are treated equally. Although the commission is already your employer, they are not entitled to get into the system to check on your records. You need to provide them. For internal competition is different, because the first thing that they ask you is to entitle them to get access into the system to log in and check that you're filling all the criteria. So it's how it works. Okay, I don't see if I got any question left. Please, if just put it again on the chat. The working time pattern refers to the position, full-time position, or the percentage of working time dedicated to the task. It refers to the position. If you were working in that position as full-time or partial time, not to the task. Printouts from CISPR, the human resources tool for those who are not coming from the institutions. As supporting documents, yes, the printouts from CISPR should be acceptable as a reference or as a document for proof or evidence. Any other question? Not in a couple of days. I think we will upload this webinar on our YouTube channel. That's the first thing. I think that you already shared your emails with Generation 2004, so we will share with them this presentation, also the PowerPoint that we have used today, so you can have a copy of it as well. Otherwise, just write us an email to get it. So, similar can also annual assessment document from private organization be considered as a proof if they describe your task and what you have done. Yes, they could be, because they are describing what you have done. The way to prove certain work activities could be through links. Could they ask for this at the interview or at later stage? Not at the interview, but when you have to provide evidence of all the merits and all the information you have provided, yes, you can share either the link or a copy of the article if you use it as a positive element in your talent. Yes, you just give that evidence. Sorry, if the talent screener does more than 1 year experience, have to be full-time experience, or would be 1 year of part-time experience be enough? I think that they refer to a full-time experience. If it's part-time, it's 50%. That will be needed 2 years, but if it's full-time, 1 year minimum. This is a question. By the way, remember that there are some exceptions for the working experience, because if maternity leaves can be included. I mean, it's also explained in the Annex 2, if I remember correctly. Check that part, because there they say the different conditions to consider some aspects of non-working situation, but still counting the experience. Asking about, there's a question asking in the motivation section, asking why you want to apply for the profile. It's also about facts only, or do they ask here for your personal motivation? Well, here, of course, the question is more about your personal motivation, but please don't say that you want to become the next president of the European Commission. That will be realistic for this competition. Maybe for the election that will be nice, but not for this AD6 energy, environmental, climate. So think about this progress in your career, you see as an evolution, or if you're already working in the institution, you want really to continue your professional path within the institutions, something that must be realistic. Otherwise, there are not right or wrong answers beyond that point, that it sounds real. Okay, so I think that's it then for today. We are right in time. We say until 2 o'clock from today. Let's see if I got a final question. I just connected, so maybe it has been already asked. Why is there a difference in the eligibility criteria for the environment field? It seems graduated political science cannot apply. I mean, as far as we know, its criteria for each profile comes from a different directorate, so they change a little bit the requirements. But still, we saw it at the beginning how to try to fit. If it's not a clear match between our degree and the list of degrees that appear on the notice, still we have a fair chance of getting accepted by explaining how our degree fits what they are looking for. So just go to the initial part of the webinar and you will see the whole explanation. Maybe a bit too long to repeat now. Feedback of your applications. As I say, I don't expect to get on the eligibility before February, and it means that the talent will go March, April, perhaps May. So it's springtime for your assessment, not sooner than that. So far, EPSO takes months to do the eligibility and the assessment of the talent screener part. So it takes a while. Regarding the FT say that will the length of the experience above 1 year lead to a higher score? Yes and no. It's not only the length, but also the activities that you have performed. You have performed in 2 years many activities, but in 4 years you have performed just one single activity. For sure, probably those who got 2 years with more activities get higher score in the talent than those with 4 and 1 single activity. It's the more comprehensive is your approach to the domain and to the field, the better. It's not only about the length of it. AG is asking about the motivation and strength section considered at the same time of the talent screener or a different moment. It's at the same time of the CV, of the eligibility checks. The talent is considered by itself. It's a single silo. It's a different world. It's considered a part, only the talent. They cannot go into the rest of the application when they are assessing the talent. Can I be discharged if my degree is listed but I didn't study anything energy specific? No, in principle, if it's listed your title, your degree, they don't say anything else. They only ask for the degree. So that's perfectly fine, but don't make too obvious that maybe your trainings or your courses during your degree were not related to or energy specific. Just don't remind them about that, but for the rest, it's perfectly valid. So, okay, yes, that's time. Thank you all for your patience. I hope I will manage to reduce my speed. I already got some comments from the previous webinar that I was moving too fast, but you know, this is intensive. We try to cover a lot of ground and the time is limited, but hopefully we managed to answer all your questions. By the way, just as last indication, remember that in Yasemoseuropeos, we can do something else for you, as for instance, not only the free webinars and materials, but also we already launched our internal competition trainings, also our assessment sessions when the moment comes in your competition, application review services, and CAS sessions. So hopefully, if you're interested, we will also share the details with you. And also follow us on social media, like Telegram channel, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and click on like. It's always helpful for the algorithm. So thank you very much, everyone. We stay in contact and hopefully content to see all of you in the assessment next spring. Okay. See you then. Bye.